Well, welcome everybody. This is Jaqui Lane, and I am interviewing Rachel Service today on my monthly author interview. Rachel, welcome.
Great to see you again, Jaqui.
Yeah, it's been all of 10 days since you and I were in Sydney in Martin Place.
We're always making time to get some vitamin D and talk about what's next and talk about business. It was a good time.
It was great.
A salad with you. It was lovely.
Yeah, it was terrific to catch up too. So for those who don't know Rachel and I first met back in 2019, and we hit it off immediately. Two direct, assertive individuals with a New Zealand connection. Funny that. Rachel had a history of anxiety, depression, and burnout before she converted her aha moment at a Beyonce concert into a pathway to personal growth. It also propelled the start of her own business, the Happiness Concierge, a TED Talk in pink suits, and much more. Rachel's book, There Has to Be More, The Essential Guide to Personal Growth, was launched smack bang in the middle of Melbourne's COVID. Talk about timely. And it still is, as many thousands of people are still reassessing what really matters to them and asking, is there more? There has to be more. Rachel, thank you for taking the time out to share your book journey with us today.
Absolute pleasure. I just came from meeting someone who was looking at the book 1 year later and asking herself that question, is there more for me? What's next? So it's very timely.
Oh, that's great. So, Rachel, I'm going to ask you a few questions about your book journey, or about you and your business and your book journey. So before we get into the book, what are you currently working on in your business?
Yes, well, at time of recording, it's November here in Melbourne, and we're already looking ahead to 2023. I don't know about you, Jax, but for me, the last 3 years have been highly reactive, and I am just craving a minute to breathe out and think about the next 3 years by design, not by default. So the projects I'm working on is reviewing every element of our business, which I'll do. And, let myself be critical about it and see what's working and throw out what's not. And as always, iterate and grow as we do as entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's terrific. And great time of year after Melbourne Cup to kind of get some hard work done before the start of the new year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. And tell me, your book, There Has to Be More, The Essential Guide to Personal Growth. What was the motivating factor for you to write and then publish it? Because writing and publishing are two different things that you probably are well aware of right now.
Only now that I'm through the other side can I fully appreciate this writing, publishing, and then there's marketing this asset for the last 12 months. But what was the impetus for me? I was having these private conversations with people through my work at Happiness Concierge. And all these questions were, there has to be more to life than this. The conversations I was having were with people who would be at the top of their game, whether they were executives or newly retired or going through a change in their lives. And they were thinking, right, so I got everything I wanted. I got the job and the house and the whatever else I might have wanted. Why don't I feel so good inside? And for whatever reason, these people were drawn to me, and they'd pull me aside after a talk and ask to have a chat. And I just thought, after a couple of years, I should really write this down somewhere. And I actually saw your marketing. I think it was on LinkedIn, Jaqui. And I said to my spouse, hey, look at this video. This is so refreshing to hear somebody break down how you write a book. I've actually always thought about it. And then I said, hey, Jaqui, let's get a coffee. I don't know if there's a book inside of me, but I think I should meet up with you. And you were able to give me some really great questions to think about, really tough questions to think about before pulling the trigger, so to speak. Yeah, but I wanted to leave something behind for people who are asking themselves these questions and not reliant on having to book a time with me. I thought, there has to be a way for people to access. I'm having these identical conversations with people. Surely I could write this down somewhere. And with your guidance, I was able to figure that out.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point you make, that, often people are having one-to-one conversations. And for some people, writing and publishing a book is actually enables them to have that conversation 1 to hundreds or 1 to thousands. And interesting, a lot of people don't think about that process when they're writing their book, but in fact, that's something that's a real reality. So how much time did you have to commit to write, publish, and market your book?
Well, the actual writing of it, I had the best of intentions, but I didn't have a direction. So I think when I came to writing the book, I really lent on your templates and worksheets and feedback to ask myself, what question am I answering every chapter? That took a lot of brain work for me. And I, like many of your audience, run your own business. So you're making decisions every week. So by the time you come to the end of the week, you think, right, I better make a dent in that book. I don't know about you, but I had no more juice left. So for me, I dedicated every Sunday to, after walking the dog, having a coffee, to sitting down and going, how am I going to move this project forward? And I gave myself a deadline to write it within a year. And it just so happened, once I asked myself those bigger questions of what am I trying to say here? And let's get specific and let's get real. The actual writing was probably the easier part. Once I was clear on what I wanted to say, the road to getting published was like a new project in itself. I had to put on a cover letter and jazz it up and, sell my pitch and get feedback and hear constructive feedback and edits and suggestions there. And then the timeline for getting published was a few months later. And then marketing, I published this. It was published a year ago. And we're now a year in and I'm still, doing Instagram posts on it. And I think I spoke to a group of 200 people a few weeks ago and they all got a copy to take home. I'm taking this business card with me everywhere now that I spent a year or two, writing it. So you go through the writing stage, then the publishing stage, and then you never stop marketing it, is what I learned. And I didn't really fully appreciate that before I started working with you, Jaqui. I thought you get to write it and then swan off and sign autographed books, which you do, but there's all this other stuff that goes on to make that happen.
And I think that's a really good point you make, that a lot of people focus on, I want to write a book, and that's great. But in fact, that's probably about a third of the process. And certainly when I'm starting to talk with people, I tend not to get too involved in how long it's going to take them to market it, because there's so much to take on initially anyway, that it's too much of an overload. But I make it very clear that, in fact, writing is really just one part, and how they can market and leverage it is really a significant part of the whole process as well.
Yeah, it's another way of thinking of, writing down all these conversations you're having one-on-one, and then, how am I marketing it? And then do I add this as a product? With the example earlier, I was able to say to that event person, I'll come and do that talk. And would you like to purchase, 200 books? I hadn't really thought about that until I was on the other side of that. It was too many steps. So I was grateful to you to just taking it slow.
That's great. And tell me, you just mentioned you launched your book's a COVID book, baby. I remember having that conversation and saying to you, well, we can launch it. You should do a virtual launch. How did you overcome that challenge and actually kind of get your head around doing a virtual launch, and was it worthwhile?
Yes. Something, you said to me throughout the writing process when I had those moments of, is this good enough? Should I, will people enjoy it? You said, Rach, people want a good news story. Let's get some good news out there. And I took that as inspiration for the virtual launch. I did have a vision of, we're all at the local bookstore with champagne and I'm signing books and everyone's so proud. But I actually was really taken aback when I thought, let's do a virtual launch. It was an hour. I think I did it during the lunchtime, 12 till 1, so my family could come from different parts of the world. And then when I saw all these faces pop up online in the grid in Zoom, we just use Zoom, and I asked a Happiness Concierge to be my MC, I was really overcome with emotion. And my spouse had ordered balloons, and another Happiness Concierge had ordered balloons to arrive, and there was cake and champagne, and there were balloons all over my floor. I thought, this gives me the same feeling for about 1/10 of the price.
Well, that's a really interesting point. And I've actually been encouraging people, even outside of COVID, to actually look at doing virtual launches for you can get a global audience for very little money. And, you can, I think I said to you, you don't have to launch your book once. You can actually launch it multiple times, and a virtual launch is a great way to do that.
Exactly. You know, on the cost saving side of things, I had family in New Zealand and Canada who could attend. I then recorded, I chose to do I thought, well, what happens at the launch? What do you actually do? And you gave me some guidance maybe to read a chapter. So I chose a chapter to read. I then recorded that and then used it as marketing material on my website to promote sales of the book. And I thought I probably would have spent a couple of thousand on that if I'd done it in person. And I'd love the opportunity to. Don't get me wrong, you know, I'll be there. But for me, after investing all the time and everything else in writing the book, I was kind of relieved that the launch would actually be a bit more cost effective in terms of the time as well. And more to the point, I think maybe more people did turn up because all they had to do was click a link while they made, you know, lunch or whatever.
Yeah, well, that's a really, really good point. And so moving on to the book, for those people who haven't already purchased it, what are the four main aspects of the book that your book covers?
Yeah. The first message really is if you feel as though you're having sort of an affair between your thoughts and your real life, and you're thinking, oh, this isn't it, but I don't know what it is. Well, thousands of people feel exactly the way that you do, and you're not breaking, although it might feel like that, you're growing. And this concept of a growing pain is actually a positive thing, means you want more. And while the more might not be reflected back to you right now, there is more out there. And the book guides you on how to clarify what it is that you want, what might be getting in the way, a bit of self-coaching, we call that, and then making a game plan to clarify, how am I going to do that? And with the book, taking the first step together. So you don't just read it, feel good, and then go, I'll do that later. You actually do some of the work with me in the book, or the audio book if you prefer. That was a fun experience.
Yeah.
And just start making small sustainable changes to your life that actually suit you. And part of that will be a bit of breaking up with expectations and what success might look like to others in pursuit of creating your own version of success and indeed failure.
Great. And of course, I've read it multiple times. So it's a great summary. Given that you're a speaker and you're already kind of out there in the public domain, how have you leveraged the book with your public speaking and for your business?
Yeah, I always liken it to a bright pink business card in that it's been quite legitimizing. I do notice that clients who have been on the fence do see me differently. It's a credibility piece. It's a great part in terms of I'm speaking a couple of times a week, and in my elevator pitch, I'm able to now say, and it says it on Google too, it's pretty cool, you're the CEO of this company and an author. There's a credibility and that comes with that. And more to the point, I use it as a selling point, which is to say, we can talk about corporate training, which is what Happiness Concierge delivers. And if you're asking yourself some of these bigger questions as an output or input of our work together, this is actually some private work you can do. It'll cost you $20-$30 or get it from the library or audible.com. And I suppose from a commercial perspective, you're rounding out every touch point that a potential customer can invest with you, whether it's $20 or $30 with your book or whether it's a couple of thousand in person. You're giving everyone a touch point to meet them where they are. And I've got people in my database who exclusively work with me in a corporate context that have bought a book, either for themselves or who have passed it on. But I've also got a huge audience, well, huge for me, that solely absorb there has to be more and growing pains and getting more out of live content, and are actually less interested in the corporate training. So I suppose the book has given me a chance to give product to those who are wanting to invest in that way too.
Yeah, that's really a kind of a good segue to my next question for you. So, going back to when we had our first conversation around your book, what was your goal when we started that, for you and your book at that point?
Yeah, I think for me, the impetus was really, I felt that I was cracking almost. I was having these private conversations. I was delivering my workload. I was writing these blogs. I felt as though I was putting a lot of energy out there. And when I looked back, I couldn't really see a clear, I don't know if it's funnel or road I couldn't see a clear place for it to live. It was a series of kind of enthusiastic ideas about
Yeah.
personal growth. It didn't make sense to me, even though when I had the conversation, it made sense with me. So I think I wanted to leave something behind for a younger version of me, people who are going through this, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm growing, I'm breaking here. I wanted that. But I think more so, I wanted to consolidate my public persona and my public brand. And I wanted all the touch points to make sense. And once I spent some time with you separating the Happiness Concierge and what that delivers and the Rachel service brand and understanding that ecosystem a little better, I started to realize, oh, there's nothing tangible in the Rachel service land for people to put their hands on. And that's what I'm craving. And now a year later, I take a book with me to every business meeting I have, whether it's a coffee or an official meeting. And it always starts or prompts a conversation. And I often say this might be for you or someone in your care, someone you love. And some people take it home for their kids and some people go, oh, well, actually, that brings up an interesting point. So it's had a lot of benefits, but the input for me was wanting to consolidate all my ideas in something tangible and I suppose something credible too.
And I guess you've partly answered this question, but I'll ask it again anyway. So did you achieve that goal and or are you still working on it?
Oh, I definitely achieved it in that I sense the credibility is there. The Google search results are pretty good too.
Yeah.
But more to the point, I think for me, I'm clear on what value I'm adding for what audience as my professional context grows. I know that if I'm speaking to 200 people about the concept that there has to be more, I can weave that in. And if we're talking about stakeholder management, this would be something I do at Happiness Concierge. I can reference that, but it's not the leading narrative. I kind of know what goes where. And I think that's helpful for my customers too. Yeah.
That's great. It makes me feel like a proud parent.
You should be. You should be.
So thank you for those insights, Rachel. Now I've got a quick quiz that I'd just like to run everybody through, and it's really important, meaningful questions in life. So are you ready for this?
Let's do it.
It's not hard quiz. It's a quick quiz. So how do you read? Do you read ebooks or print books?
Print books all the way through. Something not on a screen is very appealing.
Yeah, know that feeling. The best place for reading, couch or bed or somewhere else?
I read before bed because Sadie, my spouse, has walked in plenty of time. I've got a book on my face and I'm totally asleep. I need to be where I plan to be for the next 10 hours.
Okay, in terms of marking books, are you a page folder or do you write in books or use Post-it notes?
I am a page folder and I take notes because I'm always giving my books away. Oh, you should read this, you should read that. And I like to have my private notes to refer back to.
Yeah, I'm kind of a Post-it note person and I sometimes give away books and then I have to go and buy it again because...
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so that's what I do. So your reading style, are you read a few, skip a few, or do you read from beginning to end?
Oh, yeah, totally chaotic reading style. Read a bit, flick through a bit, oh, that looks good, I'll bookmark that, but I never read it start to end. I'm just, totally follow whatever I skim find.
Yeah, interesting. I tend to go from beginning to end and just methodically get through it.
Yes, that's why you finish books and I only start them.
That's a good point. Outside of business books and stuff like that, do you prefer fiction or non-fiction?
I solely read either business books or autobiographies to learn something. But when I need some brain dead food, I actually just pick up a gossip magazine. So then I can just look at the pictures. When I'm saying to myself, there are too many words in this book, I know that I need a break.
There we go. And if it's got Beyonce on the front cover, you're right in there.
We're done. That's right.
Yeah, great. And tell me, in terms of sharing books, are you a hoarder or a giver?
I'm a giver. I'm always taking things to the op shop. I'm the sort of person who buys the same book twice by accident and then texts friends, who wants a copy of this? This will be good.
Yeah, I've been known to do that too. Oh, that looks good. And then I forget that, in fact, I bought it and it's already in my bookcase. And now your writing style, do you write with Oxford English, Australian English, or US?
Oh, I think,
Do you know the difference?
I don't know enough. I probably Australian, and then I probably default to US. Isn't that embarrassing?
No, not really.
Oh,
So
no.
I deal with clients around the world, and it's quite an important question because in the US they use Zs and they drop Us and
Yes.
all sorts of things. So it's a question that I'm constantly asking people, and I don't mind, but I often found people use a whole combination, which really annoys me.
The poor editor.
Yeah, and so in fact you can save yourself a lot of time and money if in fact you work out what your style guide is before you even start writing.
Yes. Well, and look, that's the benefit of having access to an editor or someone helping you. Your writing actually gets better because you're getting that feedback. So
Yeah.
I suppose I'll look back and discover.
Okay, so here's a question that's not on the outline that I gave you. Are you thinking about writing a second book, and if so, what might it be about?
I am. I love this author life. I love it. It's so funny. You and I have kind of talked about this idea, and I've asked people, and what I've heard as an output of reading, there has to be more. People are saying there has to be less. As a result of reading your book, Rach, I reckon I'm going to say no to a lot more things in pursuit of what I want more of. So maybe the follow-up would be there has to be less, or I got more, now what?
Or now I need less.
Yeah, now I need less. Yeah. And there's also like this kind of belief in self-development books. There's always something to work on. What if there was a book saying you're perfect as you are, get on with it, or something?
Yeah. Okay. Well, when you're ready to talk about that,
Open
let's
to
have a
feedback.
conversation.
Yeah.
Rachel, look, I've taken up much of your time, so thank you so much. Really appreciate your insights to your book journey, and I guess also the feedback about how you've used it across kind of your different parts of what you do, both Rachel's service and the Happiness Concierge, because certainly a lot of people that I chat to often have that struggle. Can they use it across those kind of two different ways, and what's the connection, and does it connect? So I think you explored that really well. So thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you. Great to reflect together. I can't wait to hear more.
Oh, great. And if you want to get Rachel's book, Rachel, where can people go and buy your book?
You can pick up a copy at all major bookstores, audible.com, or my website, rachelservice.com.
Oh, fantastic, Rachel. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.